Hi, I'm Mindy Black, registered dietitian, and today we're going to be walking through the grocery store to answer some of the questions that you may have when trying to shop. At grocery stores, it can be completely overwhelming due to the fact that they add thousands of new products each year to the shelves. There are 3 rules that you want to remember before you enter. Number 1, always come with a list so you don't forget all the ingredients that you need for dinner. Number 2, never come hungry. You'll always end up with things that don't need to be in your basket if so. And number 3, follow the perimeter of the store first. That's where all the good stuff is, and use only the last 10 to 15% of your grocery cart to have your aisle items. Let's go on in and check it out. So the produce section is an excellent place to start when you're in the grocery store. Not only is produce a great way to get in snacks and sides to your meals with low calories, it's also high in fiber. As you'll notice when you go through the produce section, there's a ton of different colors. You have a rainbow of colors in your produce, and each color represents a different nutrient. So you want to make sure you get a wide variety of colors in your basket. When picking out produce, look for things that are local and look for things that are in season. If they're in season, they're usually a little bit cheaper, and if they're local, they usually have a lot more nutrients because they've been freshly picked instead of shipped over from other countries. When we're looking at one item in particular, you want to pick the deeper the color, that means the more nutrients. So you want to pick the deepest colors and the most bright colors. So if we were looking at red apples, this apple, for instance, would have a lot more nutrients than, say, this apple. So you always want to pick the deepest colors, and you want to look for fruits and vegetables that don't have any bruises on them or really firm to the touch. Apples, if you wanted to pick some up, could be stored in the refrigerator for about 6 weeks. So that's something that you could have and buy in bulk so that you can keep a lot of them on hand. Other vegetables and fruits may only last a few days, such as asparagus. So if you're looking at asparagus, what you want to do is you want to look for straight stalks that are medium thickness. If they're too thin or too thick, they probably aren't going to be for you. You also want to make sure the heads of the asparagus have tight heads. You don't want to have them opened up already. You also don't want to find heads that are wilted like this one. So you want to find hydrated looking asparagus. These would be good for about 4 days in your refrigerator. When we're looking at fruits and vegetables, we usually say fresh is always best, but because we do import so many of our fruits and vegetables now, we do lose nutrients through that process. If it's more affordable for you to go frozen, you can absolutely do a great job with frozen vegetables. You just want to make sure that you're getting the vegetable only. For instance, you can get broccoli in a bag, and if you look at the ingredient list, the only ingredient is broccoli. So this would be an excellent alternative to the fresh broccoli if you needed to save money. However, you also have the choice of broccoli with cheddar, where if you look at the ingredients, we have about 23 ingredients in this one, and there's about double the calories in this as the broccoli in the bag or the just normal stalk of broccoli. So you want to go with fresh or frozen and make sure just the ingredient that you're looking for is in there. If you go with canned, we want to make sure that it's canned in its own fruit or vegetable juice. It can make a big difference if not. You'll always see on the front what it's canned in, so it'll either be canned in heavy syrup, light syrup, or its own fruit juice. And you may not think that's a big deal, but for instance here, we have a difference of 7 grams of sugar to 22 grams of sugar, and that's just for one serving. There's actually 3.5 servings in this, and so if you tend to eat the whole can, we can be talking about a ton of added extra sugars. Another alternative to fresh fruit would be dried fruit, and this is an excellent way we can get in more nutrients if you're not a big fresh fruit fan. Just be careful of what's in your dried fruit. For instance, this California raisins, if you look back at the ingredient list, only contains raisins. So it would be only basically what your grape is, dehydrated. However, if we pick up the sweetened dried cranberries, if you look on the back, the second ingredient is sugar. So we want to make sure that whatever dried fruit we're picking up has only one ingredient or possibly 2, but you don't want sugar to be the first or second ingredient in the dried fruit. Remember, if you are doing dried fruit, however, that it is just dehydrated fruit, so it could add up in calories. For those of you who are trying to gain weight, this is a great way to gain weight without eating too much food. If you're trying to lose weight, make sure you don't eat the whole bag. There are 7 servings in this container, so if you're someone that tends to eat the whole container, then we maybe need to cut back on the dried fruit. When picking out meat, there's a few things that we want to look for. Number one, we want to pick lean cuts that have the least marbleization. Marbleization is the white, fatty parts of meat that you see. The more marbleization, the more saturated fat that you'll be getting. So you can see this, oxtails have the most marbleization, or the highest in fat, whereas if we're comparing a ribeye versus a sirloin, the sirloin has a lot less white marbleization, therefore a lot less fat. The second thing you want to look for when picking out meat is to make sure it's clean and in the package. You'll notice here, you don't see any juices, whereas this one, there's some red juice. We don't want to buy this one because it's not as fresh and not as healthy as something that doesn't have the juices. You can also always ask the butcher to cut this in half. So if you're a single person and only want one piece of meat, you can ask them to cut this in half. You don't have to purchase the whole thing if you don't want to. Now beef is great at times, but we only want to have beef a couple times a week. So if you were looking to have, say, taco seasoning or spaghetti sauce, another alternative would be turkey, ground turkey breast. Make sure, however, that you get the ground turkey breast and not the ground turkey. Ground turkey actually includes the entire turkey. The ground turkey breast is just the lean meat. You may not think it's a big difference. They usually will be seen side by side, and they don't look any different from the front. However, if you look on the back, you're going to have a difference of about 6.5 grams of fat per serving. Now, serving is only about the size of a deck of cards, and I don't know many guys that are only going to have a deck of cards worth of hamburgers. So if you're having a bigger serving than that, it could really add up. Seafood is another excellent way you can get in lean protein into your diet. When trying to select fish or shellfish, there's a few rules that we can go with. First, if you're close to a fisherman's market, that's the best way to go, and just ask your local fisherman what has been the most fresh. So what came in today, and that's going to be your best bet. If you don't have that option, you can always come up to the counter at your local supermarket. However, you want to look for fish that are not dull and not smelly. So actually ask the person if you can smell the fish that you're picking out. If it has an odor, it is not fresh. You also have options of doing frozen fish. However, if you're doing this, you just want to make sure that you're getting fish that are not high in mercury. Your fish highest in mercury are going to be your shark, your mackerel, the bigger type fishes. And so when looking at frozen fish, you want to go with your snapper, your mahi, your tilapia over the swordfish, your mackerel, and your shark. Another option would be to do crab or lobster, which is a great option. A lot of people think it's high in cholesterol. It does have cholesterol, however, it's not so high in cholesterol that it would raise your cholesterol unless you're eating it every single day. If you are picking out crab, get the real stuff. If you look at imitation crab versus real crab is extremely high in protein and has no carbohydrates, so it's a great lean protein source, whereas imitation crab actually has more carbohydrates and less protein in it because of the fillers. You'll see this one has 6 grams of protein with 15 grams of carbohydrate, whereas the real crab has 0 carbohydrate and 17 grams of protein, so a much better selection. When looking at eggs, there's several questions you might have: white or brown, organic or cage-free. It really depends on what you're looking for. When we're looking at organic versus cage-free versus regular, basically what organic means is they're not any nutritionally different than the regular eggs. However, they are not grown with pesticides, hormones, or antibiotics. So there's a lot less chance of having autoimmune issues in the future if you're having the cage-free or the organic ones. Now, cage-free just means that the chicken's allowed to run around without a cage when the other ones are caged in. So that's more of a personal choice for you on the humanitarian levels. As far as brown versus white eggs, you'll notice that there's a large change in price. The brown eggs are generally a lot more expensive. There is no nutritional difference between brown eggs and white eggs. The brown eggs are actually produced from a hen that has a brown ear, whereas the white eggs have a white ear. So don't waste your money on that area. However, the organic eggs can be a benefit if you're someone that eats a lot of eggs. Just like in the produce section, if you can afford organic, organic is best. However, if you can't, choose wisely. In produce, you want to pick the things from the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen, which we showed a slide of, has the most pesticides, generally having about 50 pesticides per fruit or vegetable. Here, we're going to have the pesticides, the antibiotics, the hormones injected into the chicken that's creating these eggs. So in theory, it could be in the egg as well. When it comes to milk, we have a ton of options nowadays. cow's milk, goat's milk, almond milk, rice milk. It's really hard to choose if you're overwhelmed. And it really depends on what your goals are. Cow's milk, we have fat-free, low-fat, and whole-fat milk, which may not seem like a big difference, but the whole-fat milk has about 8 grams of fat per cup, whereas the fat-free has 0. So if you're trying to watch your fat intake, then the fat-free option would be best. Now, cow's milk and goat's milk does contain lactose, and a lot of people are sensitive to lactose. If that's the case, then you can go to soy milk, almond milk, or rice milk. The cons with rice milk and almond milk are they don't have as much protein as the other three do. So if you're looking for protein content, the soy milk and the cow's milk are going to be your best bets. If you're someone that drinks a ton of milk, just like the eggs and the produce, we want to make sure that you're having organic milk so that you can avoid the hormones. Yogurt is an excellent way that you can get protein and calcium into your diet. However, there are a ton of selections that you can choose from. When picking out a yogurt, you want to look for a couple of things. The first thing you want to look for is the sugar content. You want to make sure it's no more than 15 grams of sugar. And then really make sure that you're looking every time, because certain brands will have a higher sugar content and a lower sugar content one. You also want to look for protein. The Greek yogurts tend to have a lot more protein than the regular yogurts. However, they are a little bit thicker, so some people feel like it's an acquired taste. If you look at the differences though, from the front they all may look the same. Once again, if we turn it around to the back, you'll notice the Greek yogurt has 12 grams of protein, whereas the regular yogurt only has about 6. If we look at the fruit on the bottom versus the no added sugars, the fruit on the bottom has 32 grams of sugar, whereas the no added sugar has 8. So it can make a big difference if you're having this on a daily basis. Yogurt can be used as a snack, just plain, or you can add granola and nuts and fruit to it as well on the side if you wanted to make it a bigger snack. When looking at cereals or breads or bagels or cereal bars, you have 3 rules. The first rule is that whole grain of some sort has to be the first ingredient. The second rule is that we have to have at least 3 grams of fiber, and the third rule is sugar cannot be the second ingredient. So when looking at the side, we first look at the ingredient list and make sure it's a whole grain. It can be a whole wheat, a whole oat, but it cannot be sugar. The second thing we want to look at is the fiber, which will be found up here. The more fiber, the better, but we want to have at least 3 grams. And then the third thing is we don't want sugar to be the second ingredient. For instance, this one is whole grain wheat and then malted barley. So this would pass our cereal test. When looking at juices, juices are great for nutritional value. However, if you're watching your calories, they're really high in calories for what you get. It takes out the fiber that you would have in natural fruits. If you're trying to add calories to your diet for weight gain, this is a great way that we can do it. However, we want to make sure that you're getting 100% juice. And you can't always look at the front of the label, you always need to look at the back. When we're looking at 100% juice, they may have it on the front, but you always want to look right here above the nutrition facts label, and it will tell you exactly how much juice is in there. Many of the different places will use marketing techniques to trick you. For instance, if we look at V8 Splash, it'll say 100% vitamin C. So if you're rushing through the grocery store and you just see 100%, you may think that means fruit juice. But if you look at the top of the nutrition facts label, it's only 5% juice. And if you look even further at the ingredients, the first ingredient is water, but the second ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. So this is pure sugar. So we want to make sure that we're always looking at how much juice it contains if you are going to pick out a juice. So just to recap, in order to have a great grocery store experience, you want to make sure that you always come with a list, you never come hungry, and you shop the perimeter first, leaving the aisles to only the last 10 to 15% of your cart area. These are just a few of the tips that will help make a more enjoyable shopping trip. If you need to have more, download the grocery store tour on my website, www.mindyblack.com. Have a great day.